What do you mean by a cellular system? And what is the requirement for a cellular system? In the early mobile radio systems, that is, if you start talk about AMPS, that is the regular telephone systems, or else if you talk about pages, or else if you have a discussion about second generation mobile devices, and all of those are called as mobile radio systems, and all this mobile radio system was were designed to achieve large coverage areas. But the main problem with the techniques was the devices whichever were used consumed high power where the antenna were mounted on tall towers. If we mount the antennas on the base stations or in the ground level, then as in the surrounding, as the buildings and other devices would be there, or as the trees would come into picture, the most of the signals transmitted by an antenna would be absorbed. So for that purpose, what we need to do is the antennas, whichever is used for transmission of radio frequency signals, were mounted on tall towers so that the free space is available for the radio frequency signals to get transmitted. That's the reason why we install the tower stations on the tall of the buildings, that is on the last floor of the buildings. Okay, and suppose if we are not achieving this, we cannot make use of the frequency available in atmosphere or as from the spectrum efficiently. So those things are the one, and that's the reason why the concept of cellular system came into existence. So you should know what is cellular systems, what is a cell. Normally in a cellular system, we call the cell is a hexagonal type of cell. So this is what we call it as a cell, CELL. So what is the cellular concept? A cellular concept is made use in wireless communication or as in LTE communication systems to enhance or as to make better utilization of the available frequency spectrum. I mean, suppose if I just take an example of your classroom, if your classroom is of the size 10 by 10 and I can accommodate around 80 students or as 100 students in the class, then I should provide that many number of desks in the class so that 100 students can be accommodated in the class. But in the place of accommodating 100 students, if I am accommodating only 50 students, then I am not utilizing the entire resource which is available. So instead of building a classroom which is 10 cross 10, I will just made a room classroom which is about 8 cross 8 or as 5 cross 5. Okay, but whenever the classroom area is more, the number of desks that can be arranged in the class would be more, where the students can be accommodated in the class would also be more. So in the same way, when we talk about the cellular systems, all the wireless communication or the radio communication signals transmit in the form of a cell. What is the use of designing a cell or as why we select this cell to be hexagon? Yes, because here the angles of crossovers can be easily utilized. Miss, I'll just explain about the concept further, you'll understand in a better way. So the main aim of designing the cellular system or as why we study about the cellular concept is to provide additional radio capacity with no additional increase in radio spectrum. Means if I have been allotted a band of 95 megahertz of frequency for entire Bangalore area, then if the range is between 95 to 98 megahertz in the frequency spectrum which is available in space, which is available in nature, then this 3 megahertz frequency should be utilized by the cellular communication users. So when I want to make use of this radio spectrum, how much maximum can I make use of this? That is the purpose why we study about the cellular concept. The cellular concept basically aims at providing additional radio capacity with no additional increase in radio spectrum. Means we are not increasing the radio spectrum, but in whichever the radio spectrum that we are trying to accommodate more number of subscribers. Okay. So what is cellular system? A cellular concept or a cellular system is a system level idea which calls for replacing a single high power transmitter with low power small transmitters, with each providing coverage to only small portion of the service area. Means let me take an example of our campus itself. In our campus, we have the SJBIT blocks, departments, that is ECE, Electrical, CS, IS, Mechanical, Civil and MBA. And along with that, we also have admin block. This is one thing. And secondly, we also have the gyms, that is medical college. We also have BGS which is the school. And along with that, we also have the gyms medical hospital, which is located in our area itself, means in our campus. So in our campus, we have one single tower, which is mounted on the top of our EC department itself. It is there. So that tower should facilitate the entire cellular users or as the entire mobile users to get linked with the base station which is located on our campus. Miss, on the top of the last floor of our department itself, we have the tower which is implemented, and that tower should be supporting all the mobile users who comes under the coverage area of our campus. So here that is what we call it as cellular concept or as a cellular base station. So what is the main idea in designing a cellular system or as a cellular base station is it is used for replacing a single high power transmitter with a low power small transmitter, with each providing coverage to only small portion of the service area. And second one is each base station is allocated a portion of total number of channels available to the entire system. So whenever we want to make a call, all the calls are forwarded through the base station and all the calls would be entirely preferable. And one more important thing is the nearby base stations are assigned different group of channels so that available channels are assigned to a relatively small number of neighboring base stations. And the interference between the base station has to be minimized. These are the advantages of cellular system. First one is replacing single high power transmitters with low power small transmitters, which covers major area. And second one is to reduce the interference between the base station. So what is the cellular structure? This is what we call it as cellular concept or a cellular structure. And here you can see that this each one is called as a cell. This hexagon shape what I am drawing, right? This hexagon is the shape of the cell where I name the each cell with one single identity. So here you can see this is cell A, this is cell B, C, D, E, F and G. So this one single cell A is surrounded by the surrounding remaining 6 cells in this structure. So whenever the cell A is utilizing the frequency spectrum that is available in nature, the surrounding cells, that is B, C, D, E, F and G, all of them will be making utilization of the same frequency which is available from this frequency spectrum. And when one single cell is surrounded by the other cells on its sides, they form a cluster. So this we call it as the cluster of 7 cells. So what is a cluster is a group of cells which is surrounding one single cell forms a cluster. Okay, a group of cells which surrounds one single cell forms a cluster. So the A is the single cell which is available, and the surrounding cells, that is B, C, D, E, F and G, are the cells which is surrounding, and this entire things forms into a cluster. And like that you can see you also have one more structure, that is here also they are represented as A, B, C, D, E. So the points A, this is A1, this is A2 and this is A3. All this forms as a head points or as node points. In the last week's class when I explained about node structures or as E-node concept, I told you that the cellular communication takes place by means of E-node. I think you people remember node, N-O-D-E. Okay, so the A forms the node and the surrounding cells B, C, D, E, F and G forms the supporting the links for that particular node in LTE concept. So basically a cellular concept is the one where the cells are aligned in the shape of a hexagon and the surrounding cells whichever comes under one particular cells forms into a cluster. A group of cells which is formed into which is forms a central node is called as the cluster of cells. And the second important thing what I want to explain you here is why the shape of the cell is only hexagon. Why the shape of the cell would not be circular or as triangular or square or rectangular. The main solution here why we are selecting a hexagon shape is the utilization of the frequency would be better, because whenever I consider the shape of the cell to be an hexagon, you can see that there's no breakage or as there is no gap which is maintained between one cell to the other cell. It creates a form of umbrella. So the entire frequency whatever is available in this area can be utilized by all these cells, because there is no gap which is framed when I create the cell structure using the shape of an hexagonal cell. But suppose if you just try to understand, suppose if the shape of the cell, instead of treating it to be hexagon, if I consider the shape of the cell to be circular, then you can see if I try to connect the circles and if I want to form a structure, you can see there is a gap which is available between each and every cell. So the frequency which is available there will be lost. That is one reason why I cannot consider the shape of the cell to be circular. And let me take an example where I want to design the shape of the cell to be triangular. See, if this is a triangle, then so here also you can see this structure, this area, whichever is there, is not utilized by the frequency spectrum. It is wasted and I cannot form a cluster. And if I take the example of a square, if I take the example of a square also, whenever the corners are sharp and they are pointed, the signal degradation takes place because there is a change in the angle of propagation which will arise. So due to that, we cannot consider the shape of the cell to be a square also. The same problem arises if I am considering the shape of the cell to be rectangular. Even in rectangular also, the same thing is there where the corners cannot cover the area, because as we know the entire dimension area has to be covered. Where if I just create the cell structure using rectangular cells, they may cross the coverage area. Because when you are talking about a coverage area, always it is in radius. Okay, so it is in circular fashion. So if I consider this as one particular area, which is our BGS campus, then the tower A is located on the top of our EC department. Then the entire area is formed into a cluster where all the mobile users can access the cell base station, which is there on the EC department. Okay, so this is the reason why the shape of the cell is selected as hexagon and not circular, triangular, square or rectangular. Next, coming for cellular network. So here you can understand the segmentation of the area into cell. Just let me take an example that here the area surrounding Kengeri, that is we have the Kengeri Upanagar, we have the Uttarali main road areas, we have the Raja Rajesh Nagar areas, whichever is there. These are the three surrounding different areas which is in around our campus. So whenever the cells has to render service for all these areas, then it has to be subdivided. So here also you can take an example. If I complete with this structure, this forms a cluster. This is one cluster. So the cell whichever is there located on in our campus can render service for the surrounding areas which are comes under that wide area of coverage or is radio coverage area of the cell. Okay. So what are the uses when we design a cell in hexagonal shape or as when we talk about cellular network is we can make use of several carrier frequencies. Means multiple subscribers can make use of the base station. And one more thing is the concept of frequency reuse. There is no crosstalk which occurs because the same frequency is not utilized by the adjoining cells. The frequency of operation of this cell may be different and the frequency of operation of the other cell may be different. Okay. If the frequency operated by operation frequency of operation of cell A is around 92 megahertz, then the next cell will not be using this frequency. But the concept of frequency reuse you will study in this class itself, where this frequency is again utilized only after the cell has some distance. So that's it is what we call it as concept of frequency reuse. Okay, so the frame sweep frequency is not shared by adjoining cells. It is utilized only after traveling, maintaining some distance. Next, the cell size varies from 100 meters up to 35 kilometers depending upon the user density, the transceiver power. Means suppose for example, if you start making an outgoing call when you just start with the campus and if you stay somewhere in Banshankari until you reach your home, that is if you are staying in Banshankari, through the whenever you just have a call, whenever you are on a call and you will continue your mobility from the campus to your residence and you are still on the telephone conversation which you are doing, then the same cell wherever you have got connected, the same cell will extend its service because the radio frequency propagation will be up to 35 kilometers. So if I take the distance calculation from your campus up to Banshankari, it is maximum of around 15 kilometers. So up till 15 kilometers of coverage area, the same radio frequency will help you to have your conversation, will help you to continue your conversation when you have a conversation call, when you have a call on the mobile phone. Okay, so the cell size varies and it can it can render service for the coverage area up to 35 kilometers, minimum 100 meters up to maximum 35 kilometers. And why we design the shape of the cell to be hexagon is it is idealized where the cells will not overlap, and the shape also helps the geographic area coverage to be more.